Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating alternate history scenario. Imagine this twist. What if Subhash Chandra Bose hadn't disappeared after World War II? What if he'd actually returned and somehow become the first prime minister of independent India?
It's a massive what if, isn't it? Truly mind-bending when you think about the implications.
Absolutely. It forces you to completely rethink the path India actually took.
Exactly, because, the official story of his death in that plane crash in 1945, it's always been shrouded in doubt for many.
Yeah.
So let's run with it. Picture Bose stepping back onto the scene, maybe around 46, when independence talks were really heating up, or perhaps right at the stroke of midnight in August 47.
The entire political landscape would just combust, wouldn't it? Instantly.
Oh, completely. Total flux.
Yeah, flux is putting it mildly. You've got Bose, right, with this very strong, aggressive nationalism. He admired discipline, maybe even militaristic structures for nation building.
And then you contrast that sharply with Nehru's vision, democratic socialism, parliamentary procedure.
And Gandhi, towering over it all, committed absolutely to nonviolence, satyagraha. These aren't just policy tweaks. They're fundamentally different ways of seeing the world, seeing India.
Precisely. And those tensions were already bubbling under the surface, even without Bose physically present in India post-war. His return, it would have been like throwing fuel on the fire. I mean, it seems almost inevitable that it would force some kind of major break.
So you think a split in the Congress Party, that seems plausible.
Very plausible. Or Bose might have just revived his forward bloc, or started something entirely new, a distinct political force challenging Nehru and Gandhi directly.
Okay, and this is where I find it particularly intriguing. Given Bose's background with the forward bloc, and especially the Indian National Army, the INA.
Which was a military force, yes.
Right. Could we have seen a government that wasn't purely civilian? Maybe some kind of, civilian-military hybrid? Maybe more authoritarian?
It's a stark possibility. It deviates massively from the democratic path India actually followed.
And what about the economy? Bose seemed quite impressed by certain models, didn't he?
He definitely was.
Yeah.
Think about the rapid industrial growth he saw or knew about in places like Germany before the war or Japan. His economic thinking likely reflected that admiration. So instead of the more state-led, somewhat socialist-leaning model India initially adopted.
We might have seen something different.
Perhaps a stronger push for heavy industries, yes, but maybe with more centralized planning focused on that goal. And potentially more active collaboration with the private sector to really drive that industrialization quickly.
So are you hinting at potentially earlier economic liberalization than what happened historically? Decades earlier, maybe?
This is a distinct possibility, yeah. His focus seemed to be on rapid national strengthening, and the models he looked at weren't purely state-controlled in the way India initially went. It suggests a different economic path.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Foreign policy. Nehru is practically synonymous with the non-aligned movement.
Absolutely, a cornerstone of early Indian foreign policy.
How would Bose have navigated that? In that emerging Cold War world, India staying non-aligned, would that have even been his style?
That's a huge question. Bose was, above all, a pragmatist when it came to achieving his goals. Look at his wartime alliances. It seems much more likely he would have favored strategic partnerships. He wouldn't necessarily be bound by ideology in the same way.
So potentially aligning with who? The U.S.? The Soviets?
Depending on his calculation of India's best interests at that specific moment, he might have seen an advantage in aligning with one bloc or the other to secure resources, technology, or security guarantees.
Wow. Just that one decision could have drastically altered early Cold War dynamics, couldn't it?
Fundamentally. Yeah. And linked to that, think about China. Bose was intensely focused on national strength, national security.
So maybe a different approach there, too, more assertive.
It's plausible. You have to wonder if a Bose-led India prioritizing military readiness from day one might have taken a stronger line on border issues much earlier, perhaps even preempting the kind of situation that led to the 1962 war.
That leads naturally into thinking about the military itself under Bose, the INA veterans. They were a dedicated force.
Yes, and symbolically very powerful, even in defeat, integrating them. That's fascinating.
How might that have played out? Integrating INA veterans into the new Indian Army?
Well, you'd potentially have a core of experienced, highly nationalistic soldiers integrated into the national forces. It could have shaped the Army's ethos, maybe accelerated its expansion.
And given Bose's focus on security and, proactive defense...
You might well have seen the precursors to organizations like RAW, our external intelligence, and DRDO, defense research, established much, much earlier.
With bigger budgets from the start?
Seems highly likely. A stronger emphasis on defense spending, border security, that feels very in line with his known priorities.
Okay, now for perhaps the most sensitive and maybe most impactful counterfactual, partition.
Ah, yes. The great tragedy.
The INA itself was notable for its religious diversity, wasn't it? Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs fighting together.
That's an incredibly important point. The INA was a living example of cross-communal unity in action, united by Indian nationalism, not religion.
And Bose himself.
A staunch secularist. His personal convictions, combined with the INA's example and his, frankly, immense popular appeal across religious lines, it raises a powerful question.
Could he have stopped partition? Or at least delayed it, altered it somehow?
It's one of the most compelling possibilities in this whole scenario.
Yeah.
His authority, his image as a unifying figure who transcended religious divisions. He might have been the one leader with the clout, maybe the forcefulness, to push back against the communal tide that was rising so strongly.
So a Bose government might have actively suppressed communal politics much more forcefully than what happened.
Given his leadership style, yes. Remember, the INA loyalty was commanded across religious lines. He might have used the state's power more assertively against communal groups and really hammered home that shared national identity, the Indian First idea, drawing on the INA's legacy.
It's hard to overstate how different modern South Asia would look if partition hadn't happened, or had happened differently. Truly transformative.
Absolutely.
What about culture, education? Under a fervent nationalist like Bose, what changes might we expect there?
You'd almost certainly see a major push for what he might call an Indianized curriculum. Meaning a strong focus on patriotism, on Indian history, told from a definitively Indian anti-colonial perspective, celebrating national heroes, indigenous culture, a real effort to decolonize the mindset through education.
So more support for regional languages, perhaps. Promoting anti-colonial narratives in textbooks, in public memory.
Precisely. And I suspect a leader like Bose, focused on national self-reliance and pride, would also see the value in film, media, science.
As tools for nation building.
Exactly. You might see significant state backing for films with patriotic themes, media promoting national unity, and scientific research aimed at boosting India's prestige and capability.
Okay, let's try and bring all these threads together. If we synthesize this, what's the overall picture of this alternate India under Prime Minister Bose?
Well, you're potentially looking at a nation that industrialized faster, perhaps, certainly one of the stronger military posture from the outset, an India that likely wouldn't have embraced non-alignment in the same way, maybe forging clear alliances early on, more assertive on the world stage.
So potentially more unified if partition was avoided, economically maybe more dynamic earlier, militarily stronger.
Possibly on a faster track to becoming a major power, certainly an appealing image in some ways. A bold, decisive India.
There's always a but in these scenarios, isn't there? What's the potential downside?
There usually is. That same focus on national unity, on rapid development, on decisive leadership. It could come at a cost. Well, a very strong, charismatic leader pushing hard for national goals. Sometimes that leaves less room for dissent, doesn't it? The emphasis on speed and efficiency and unity might have meant, a slower development for democratic checks and balances, maybe less space for civil liberties compared to the path India actually took.
So a trade-off, perhaps, national strength versus democratic depth.
It's a potential trade-off, yes. It highlights that every historical path has its own mix of advantages and disadvantages. A stronger, more unified, more powerful India, but maybe one that felt less free or took longer to develop its democratic muscles.
It really underscores how crucial leadership choices and core ideologies are in shaping a nation's entire destiny, doesn't it? This whole deep dive just shows the intricate dance between strength, freedom, unity, and the many, many different paths history could have taken.
It absolutely does. Thinking about this what if really forces us to appreciate the complexities of the choices that were made, the legacies of different leaders, and how those echoes from the past still shape our present day. It definitely leaves you thinking.